All right, you guys want to read that? Okay, we've got a lot to unpack. But first, there's a few things that must be said. This is not, this is just pure numbers and just what I found in my research and whatnot. This is nothing I did. I didn't do a single thing of any of these things and any of this case. It's only God, man. Especially when you hear the numbers, which I'll get into, you'll know there's nothing I could have possibly done. So, two acronyms I will use is TBI, which is that traumatic brain injury, and then PTA, post-traumatic amnesia. So what that is essentially it's the brain's way of not only rewiring itself, but also it's just the brain doesn't log memories because it's focused on the main things in the body. It's no kidding like the sympathetic nervous system. It's that fight or flight kind of response. And so it's obviously to help benefit the body and once again protect it. Because, you know, if I wasn't in a 40-day PTA, I can't imagine the amount of pain I would have remembered, agony, suffering, and all of these bad things. So once again, it's that protective layer, protective thing. I would like to say also, I have just recently passed a very important first step in pursuing this childhood dream of mine, which I won't disclose until it is done. Just because that's how I am, that's who I am. So I don't like to talk about it until it's done. But of course, if I regularly text certain people or I'm very close with them, I will certainly let them know. And obviously they're telling me things that are very close to them, so I will likewise do the same. So PTA, post-traumatic amnesia. The most significant and what they call medically extremely severe, which is certainly the case. That is, and I confirmed this with my neurologist, I confirmed that is past 28, 29 days. And I'm sure I'll get into it in this video, but essentially mine was 40 from, I always thought it was 40, but then after doing some meditation, I remember seeing November 11th as the earliest date that I can remember in the last and final hospital where I finally came around, last and final hospital of 3. And so October 3rd to November 11th, that's 40 days exactly. So let's see what we got here. Longer PTA is linked to persistent deficits in memory, attention, and most importantly, executive function. So we just go past that one. So here's one of the big ones. Of estimated 70 million traumatic brain injuries that vary in severity, so whether that the brain's gotten hit and it's bleeding like mine was in 3 different spots, or just a simple concussion. Regardless, that amounts to the 70 million roughly per year. And so of that 70 million, only 1 to 3% are classified as extremely severe with multiple brain bleeds, like of course mine was. So of these 1 to 3%, less than 1% survive without major disability. But let's narrow this down a little bit more. I had no brain surgery, paralysis, speech loss, major cognitive dysfunction, and no dependency on caregivers. Statistically, I am in a class of maybe 1 in 100K, possibly rarer. And so with all this, all these crazy statements, you're probably thinking, what proof does this guy have? And I will make sure I put I I would say the majority, or at least try and do the most of them that I can find based off my research and the sites I got this information from, which I should be able to obtain fairly easily. And I will put all of those in the description. So my survival. Oh my goodness. So in one of these, I'll talk about people I know who have had less traumatic brain injuries, but still they're affected in this certain way. So not in regards to survival, because they did survive, but survival with multiple brain bleeds, and 3 of them, dude. You've got to be kidding. Truly unbelievable. The human, pun intended, human brain cannot comprehend and understand how this is possibly the case, which at the very, or towards the end, we'll certainly get to that. But just the matter of fact that the brain is so sensitive, and still, I'm not dead. And even more than that, I'm nearly untouched by this significant damage to the brain. And so also with PTA, post-traumatic amnesia, the longer it is, I think I forgot to write it down here, but the longer I remember, the longer it is, the more significant and life-altering the deficits are from a prolonged PTA. So once again, you take into account the amount of brain bleeds and the amount of days I was in PTA, man, oh man, unreal. And so in therapy, because in therapy I was going to speech, physical, and occupational. And so in speech is obviously where you start to get your memory back and your cognition and all that type of stuff, and just that executive function and whatnot. And so once I didn't know about PTA until I was told by one of the therapists, and I was just always so confused, because I only remember, so let's go over this real quick. First hospital, I remember not a single thing. Second hospital, I remember little spigots, little in and outs of memories and whatnot. And although not all of them aligned with let's say what I was my visions and what I was remembering, they still had some correlation. For example, I think someone asked me, where is my dad? And he was in the room, or it was something like that. I was like, he's not here. And then they said his name. Where is, I'm not going to say his name, but where is so-and-so? I said, oh, he's right here, leaning against the wall. And so, ironically, he wasn't leaning against the wall at all, but he was in that direction and was in the room. So, and once again, I was still in PTA, and I wasn't in full consciousness of the matter of fact of that specific case. So talk about survival. This one, oh man. Functional recovery. So to not have brain surgery, dude. And so once again, with my research, essentially what it was saying with multiple brain bleeds, if you happen to not need brain surgery, what it is truly is just controlled chaos in the grand scheme of things. Controlled chaos in the brain. So when it's uncontrolled chaos, that's when they have to intervene and do brain surgery and make sure they stop that chaos with surgery, with whatever they do in the brain and whatnot. Of course, obviously I'm no neurologist, and then minimal lasting deficits. So me, I only have 2 things that I'm affected with, and they are both significantly minimal comparatively. So talked about it before, and I'm completely accepting of these things, so I have no shame or anything, any reason why I won't say them now that I have accepted it to its extreme. So the physical one is my left foot, big toe. I mean, they're both technically physical, but the other one's emotional, you could say. So left foot, big toe just flexes up randomly, and it's like just a flexion of the toe just out of my control. And like there'll be like certain like angles I can like make it flare down, but that one won't necessarily diminish my quality of life, but it's just an annoyance really in the grand scheme of things. And then this one that I had to accept and get over after some time. And although no one in my life near and dear to me has passed away yet, it's inevitably going to happen, and that will truly be the case because I can no longer physically cry. I'll be fortunate if I can even tear up, really, in the grand scheme of things. So, but of course, not having something, and especially going through the journey and recovery, and that was difficult not to have. But now it's just, you know, I in a sense I couldn't care less. But of course, if I could get it back, it would be amazing. But the foot issue is from my right side midbrain, and that's where the damage was, and that's the reason why that's affected. And the right side of the brain controls the left side of the body, and then vice versa. Left side of the brain controls the right side of the body. But then with my crying, I didn't dive too deep into this one because once again it's just not something I care too much about. But just from the medical course I took, and just doing very brief research, it's either because of a facial nerve that was damaged, because I did have multiple facial fractures. I'm not sure how many, that's not important to me, but it could be the nerve damage from the facial nerves, or it's the limbic system in the brain was damaged. More than likely the what's called, the medical term is COOP. So the three brain bleeds: COOP, content COOP. Content COOP is basically a rebound. So after it hit the front, then it recoiled back and kind of just bounced off. And of course the brain, you know, you'd have to think is fairly squishy. So, you know, it's just gonna bounce off, and then it hits the back, and then very more than likely when my head hit the pavement, that's where my right side midbrain was damaged. So once again, not important, but I figure we might as well go over it here right now. And so yeah, I'm on no major cognitive dysfunction. So I have two fairly close friends. Obviously now we've kind of fallen off, as we're I know for a fact I certainly am trying to get my life back together. But one had one brain bleed, the other had two, and they both cannot get back to a normal life or pass the neuropsychological exam, the brain evaluation you must take in order to return to executive functions and whatnot. And although it's saddening to say, once again, they cannot get back to that normal life because their memory is no longer intact. So their short-term and long-term memory are no longer there. And so let's see. So three total is the maximum confirmed cases of TBI survivors with little to no lasting neurological deficits. And so cases with 4 or more brain bleeds, you can expect long-term deficits, coma, or death. I couldn't find a case of 4 or more where this was the case. So, you know, and you certainly have to imagine so. So I am at the top of severity in terms of functional recovery individuals and the amount of brain bleeds and the amount of days in PTA, man. And so with all of this and a few more things and many more I didn't put in here because it would be way too long, realistically, statistically, biologically, and medically, I am a 0.0001% case, so 0.0001% case or rarer. And so let's go over the key points. So 4 of them. The vast majority with injuries like mine die or are disabled for life. 2, my recovery happened with no surgeries. And so there's a buddy of mine, or I'm just gonna say associate because I wouldn't even call him a buddy, especially because it's just how we've fallen out just naturally, and we were never that close to begin with. But if I'm not mistaken, he had 1 brain bleed. He needed surgery, but from what I can tell, I haven't asked him about it, but from what I can tell, it seems he is very much so like me, nearly untouched from the damage, but he had surgical intervention, so must take that into account. And once again, I didn't, so my body, brain just naturally fixed itself and started rewiring. And of course, me being young plays a part, no doubt, undoubtedly. And it's the neuroplasticity in the brain. Basically what that is just a rewiring and being able to kind of like reset and recoil and bounce back. So, and then 3, doctors rarely, if ever, see a case like mine, a case like this. And then 4, science cannot fully explain it, ever. It cannot. And, you know, I certainly had this feeling when my neurologist couldn't answer my questions, and it is very much so, once again, more than likely because he has never seen a case like this. And of course, talking with him also, he's saying that it's somewhat encouraging seeing that I am how I am, despite all the negative cases he sees on the daily. So, hallelujah. No other legitimate explanation other than God, the Most High God, the one true God, or whatever higher being you believe in, whether that's the universe or whatever it may be. Whatever your beliefs are, I respect that, and it is what it is. But regardless, that higher power from humans, that was on full display, and I'm very much so hoping and praying that I can be a vessel and a human to prove this to be true and the matter of fact, and overcome many difficult things neurologically with courses and classes and just what I plan to do with my life and whatnot. So I'm an anomaly. That word is not used much. What that is I am a significant exception to my severity of brain damage. Just TBIs in general, but primarily a long duration of PTA and 3 multiple brain bleeds. 3 multiple could be 2, like my buddy. I'm not gonna name names just cause, but multiple could be 2, or in my case, more than 2. So, and I'm just on that higher echelon of severity. And from my deficits I have, how I'm affected long term, that medication or specialist doctors can't fix, are those 2 things, the toe and then crying. And I have seen a podiatrist, which is a foot specialist, for my toe. Gave me inserts, but tried them for a few weeks and it certainly did not help whatsoever. But once again, these two are both so insignificant from the matter of fact that I should not be here, and I should not be as functional as I am.